Dear learners, welcome back. Welcome back to our series of lectures on structure of atom. You will recall that in the previous session, we started by talking about the philosophical foundations of the concept of atom, and thereafter we talked about Dalton's atomic theory and Thomson's discovery of electron, and followed by Thomson's model, and then we showed that Thomson model was inadequate to explain the results of alpha ray scattering experiment, which were actually explained by Rutherford by proposing the presence of a nucleus in an atom. And then we ended the session with discussing about Rutherford's model and pointing out that this doesn't account for the stability of atom there. And we said that we need to talk about another model of atom, that is Bohr's model. However, before talking about Bohr's model, we need to understand about one very important concept, the concept of quantization. And that is exactly what we're going to do in today's session here. Now, basically, you know that the classical mechanics, you have learned about classical mechanics in school physics, is extremely successful because classical mechanics, constitutes a variety of classical laws, that is like Newton's laws of motion, the gravitational law, and also the Maxwell's equations and all. So these put together are able to explain most of the macroscopic phenomena and what we observe in the macroscopic domain. And for example, when, where, for how long will a solar eclipse be visible can be predicted very precisely. We have just experienced that a few days back. That is because this is a macroscopic phenomenon, and our classical mechanics is good enough to tell us that what exactly, at what time, where on the earth can we see the solar eclipse, and for how long will it last. All these things are predictable because we are able to calculate them on the basis of classical physics. Similarly, you watch say a cricket match. In the cricket match, the third umpire is aided by the classical mechanics for taking the decision whether the batsman was out or not. So that all is based on the calculations or the basis on the principles of classical mechanics. So classical mechanics is fairly good as regards the macroscopic phenomenon. However, historically we found that for microscopic systems like atoms and molecules, classical mechanics was not adequate enough. And since this is a very established science, classical mechanics, there were certain challenges to that one. And historically speaking, there were a number of challenges to the classical mechanics, which basically means that the certain experiments result could not be explained with the help of classical mechanics. And for our story, we need to talk about three such challenges there. They happen to be the black body radiation problem. That's one very significant one. And second is the photoelectric effect. And the third one is atomic line spectra. In all these three cases, and there are more cases as well, we find that the classical theory and the experimental results, what we found in these cases, they did not match. That means the classical mechanics could not explain the observations in these three experiments over there. We will begin with the first experiment, that is the black body radiation problem, because that actually is the cornerstone in the domain, in the context of proposal of concept of quantization there. Now let's see what is black body radiation first. Now basically what happens is, a black body is the one which absorbs all the radiation that is incident on it and emits the same when heated. What it means is, it is a perfect absorber and a perfect emitter. That means perfect absorber means any radiation falling on this is absorbed by it. In that sense, that's the meaning of, that means it is a perfect absorber. And when you heat such a body, it will emit all the radiations back. So it's a perfect emitter as well. It is basically an ideal concept. We do not have a black body per se, because it's an ideal, like ideal gas. We don't have an ideal gas. Ideal solutions, we don't have ideal solutions as such. So ideal basically is something which is not achievable as such, but we can reach a good approximation to that. And in that context, we can say a black body can be approximated by a hollow spherical body with a pinhole. That means you take a spherical body which is hollow from inside and it is blackened, it's dark, it is black, and also it has a pinhole here, a very tiny hole over there. So what happens is, if you pass any radiation through this pinhole into this body, what will happen? The radiation will strike the opposite corner, opposite surface, and it will get reflected a number of times and eventually get absorbed. No matter what radiation we throw on this, it all gets absorbed. So in that sense, it acts as a perfect absorber. And then what happens is, if you heat it, then this becomes a perfect emitter. It emits all the radiations over there. So that is what I'm saying. That is, on heating such a cavity, it behaves as a perfect emitter, and the radiation which leave this hole, when you heat it, the radiation will come out from this hole, and this radiation which comes out is called as black body radiation, because this is coming from out from a black body there. Now, this experiment was done somewhere around end of 19th century, about 1887 and all. And Pringsheim and Leuven were the people who did that one. And what they observed was that for a black body of this kind, this is the energy distribution kind of a thing. That means on x-axis we have got wavelength, and y-axis is energy density. So how much of energy is coming out of the black body at different wavelengths over there. And there were two very significant observations. The first one was that as we raise the temperature, with the increase in temperature, the total energy output, that is an area under the curve, increases. You see that at about 3500 K, so this is the energy output over there. What it means is, say at 3500 K, so much of energy is coming at this particular wavelength, at so much, and so on and so forth. That means at different wavelengths, the energy distribution is given over here. And what was observed was, as you increase temperature, say 3500 to 4000, 4500, 5000, and so on and so forth, we find that the area under the curve increases. That means the energy density is increasing. There's more energy is coming out. That's one observation. And second observation was that the lambda max shift to a lower wavelength. That means at 3500, this is the lambda max there, this is the lambda max. The lambda max is that wavelength at which there is a maximum energy density coming out over there. So these were two observations, experimental observations, and a large number of attempts were made based on classical mechanics, and this could not be explained by using those attempts over there. We will not get into details of that one. That's not in this domain of your course. So basically, there were Wien's attempt there, Stephens had worked on that, and then Rayleigh and Jeans worked on that. So they could explain part of these curves, but not the whole curve in total. So in that sense, we could say that the classical mechanics is inadequate. That is, classical mechanics is not able to explain the experimental observations of a black body problem there. So that was the first challenge, the most significant challenge to classical mechanics. And this challenge was overcome by Max Planck. Max Planck explained, because Max Planck basically was a classical physicist only. He was a person from thermodynamics, and he was attacking this problem, and he was not able to find a solution to that. And in this attempt to explain the experimental observations, he proposed the concept of quantization of energy. What does it mean? Basically, prior to that, that date happened to be December the 14th, 1900. That's the day he presented his results before the scientific community over there. Now, prior to that day, basically it was believed that a system can take up any energy. System here actually happened to be the emitters in the black body, which constitute the black body there. We will not get into that. We will just talk in colloquial terms. That is, energy happens to be continuous. And Planck proposed that energy is quantized. And using that basic premise as a new concept he proposed, he actually worked out a derivation. And on the basis of the derivation, we found that when we say quantization, basically means energy can take up any certain discrete value. Only certain values are possible, not all values. And based on the formulation of this quantization of energy, the formula given by Max Planck matched exactly with the experimental observations. That means the Planck's predictions, the predictions based on the Planck's formula about the black body radiation matched exactly with the experimental results, and that was the success of this concept of quantization, which was proposed by Max Planck. That means basically in the context of explaining the experimental observations for black body radiation, Max Planck gave the concept of quantization and showed that it works. However, when you look into literature, we find that though it was a big thing, but people didn't take note of this very significantly. So it was just like people thought maybe he has been able to do something, but people were not convinced about the very fact that Planck was talking about the concept of quantization of energy, because people were so convinced about energy being continuous that they didn't believe his concept over there. Okay. However, later Max Planck got Nobel Prize in 1918 for this particular contribution over there. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and see that what exactly we mean by quantization. So this little animation is going to clarify the meaning of quantization versus a continuous behavior and a quantum behavior. Let's look at this picture here. So there is an incline over here, and here we have got a set of steps over there. Now suppose you see it here carefully. So what do we find? We find that we had an object at the top of this incline, and as this object rolled down, it could take up any potential energy over there. On the other hand, in this case, what you find is that this object was on top, it had certain potential energy, it took one step, came down to this potential energy, then this, and then this. That means it could take up only certain potential energies which are discrete values, whereas this is a continuous behavior. The object could take up any energy as well as proceeding, because when it is here, certain amount of energy, it moves a bit, the energy changes. It keeps on moving, energy changes continuously over there. Whereas in this case, the energy could take up changes in steps only. It can take this value, this value, this value, or this value, not anywhere in between. So this is a quantum mechanical behavior, a quantum behavior. This is a classical behavior. That means energy is continuous, energy is discontinuous or discrete. Okay, I'm sure that you are able to understand the difference between the two. Let's take some more analogies to understand this. Nowadays, you find that most of the buildings are kind of disabled friendly. You can see that this is a common sight on different buildings. So you see that there is a ramp here where one person can just go up there, and you have an alternative way to go up there are certain steps over there. Now, if you just move around the ramp, what will happen? Your energy, you can just continuously keep rolling up, keep moving up, energy, you can take up any energy as you move here and reach this place. And the second possibility is you take this route and you just take one step, 2, 3. So you are changing, your energy is changing stepwise there. So this is a quantum behavior, this is a classical behavior. One more thing, another way. So this is a ramp here, similar, exactly the same thing, but put slightly differently. So this is classical behavior, this is quantum behavior. The height is increasing in a stepwise manner. Here it can take up any height over there. Okay, let's take more examples of quantization. Here you see that the currency happens to be quantized. This is an older currency now, not some of them are not in use anymore. Now what you find is, so you have a currency note of say 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 20 rupees. You don't have a note of 12.392 rupees. So that is discrete. It can take up, the currency can take up only discrete values: 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 now, 500, 1000, and so on and so forth. So you do not have any denomination in between them. Similarly, if you look at the coins also are 1 paisa, 2 paisa, 3 paisa, 5, 10, 20, 25, and so on and so forth. And now the newer currency, you know that there's a 50 rupee note, there's a 200 rupee note, 500, and so on and so forth. So what you find is, this is the meaning of quantization. That means you can have the currency of only certain denominations, not all denominations. So you don't have a 13 rupee note. You cannot have it 12.5 rupee note. You can have either 1 rupee, 5 rupee, 10 rupee, 20 rupee, and so on and so forth. So that is the meaning of quantization. That means the currency can be there of only certain discrete denominations and not any number as you wish to have. Okay, I think with this we are clear about what is the meaning of quantization. Quantization means discrete. Only certain values are allowed, not all values. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and see that how this concept of quantization was used to explain the results in another case that happens to be the photoelectric effect, which again you have learned at your school. We'll just briefly recall that one. You know that this photoelectric effect basically refers to the emission of electrons by some metals when electromagnetic radiation of suitable wavelength falls on them. That means you know that pretty well. There's a metal over here, so there are free electrons in that. So when a radiation of certain particular wavelength comes on this, strikes it there, it knocks off the electrons, and then what you have is these electrons come out of the metal and they constitute current. So that's the meaning of photoelectric current. Photo from light. Electric current because the current is coming as a consequence of light. So this effect was called as photoelectric effect. And what happened is, in this case, again, there were a lot of observations which we are not getting into details of that one. That means there has to be, there's no time lag there, and then there are a variety of observations we had in case of photoelectric effect. And what we find is that the classical predictions about the photoelectric effect, this particular experiment there, and the experimental observations did not match at all. Again, we can say that the classical mechanics happens to be inadequate to explain the results of this particular problem, because that is the second challenge to classical mechanics there. And this problem was solved by Einstein. What basically Einstein did was he extended the concept of quantization to radiation, because Max Planck proposed quantization of energy. That means energy can take up only discrete values there. So that concept was extended by Einstein, and he proposed that even radiation is quantized. What basically it means is that the electromagnetic radiation consists of a stream of particles called as photons. Because you know that when you talk about radiation, there are two ways of looking. One is a classical way of looking at it is, that is electromagnetic radiation. There's an electrical component there, there's a magnetic component, the two are mutually perpendicular and also perpendicular to the direction of propagation. That we are familiar with. So the wave theory of light. Okay. Now, as against that, Einstein proposed what's called as that radiation happens to be a stream of particles, or the particles happen to be the photons, and each photon has energy of E is equal to h nu, depending on what kind of photon you have. Okay. Now, using this concept, Einstein was able to explain all the experimental observations of photoelectric effect. So that was the first triumph of the concept of quantization as proposed by Max Planck. That's very, very important there. As I told you, because Max Planck gave the results in 1900 and Einstein did this work in 1905. So it took about 5 years for this concept of quantization to get recognition, and that recognition came from nothing short than a person like of the caliber of Einstein there. Okay, let's move ahead and talk about another challenge to the classical mechanics, and that happens to be line spectrum, atomic line spectrum. Let's understand what does it mean. Basically, you know that all hot objects give a continuous spectrum. And this is one illustration here, which I've taken from Wikipedia. So basically what is shown here is that we have a incandescent lamp over there, and you pass through a slit and the radiation comes, and we find that that radiation consists of a continuous spread. There is a continuous spectrum over there. Okay, that means there is a continuous range of wavelengths which constitute this light which is coming from that lamp over there. Okay, as against this, what you find is that the atomic spectra are line spectra. Line spectra, what does it mean is, this is a spectrum of hydrogen atom. You find that in hydrogen atom there are a series of lines over there. You have learnt about these, say, Lyman series, Balmer series, Paschen series, and so on and so forth. So all these series happen to be lines. That means the spectrum, suppose you take hot hydrogen in atomic form, and when that radiates, that will give a spectrum which will be consisting of these kind of lines over there. So this is for the helium atom over there. So what you find is the atomic spectra happen to be line spectra. One more example probably which will be relevant here, which you are familiar with, you have done what is called as a flame test in your school to identify certain cations in the salt analysis. You find that each element has a characteristic set of lines that are used to identify it. Because you know that when you do the flame test, you know that what kind of flame is given by sodium, what is given by calcium, strontium, barium, and so on and so forth. They have got very distinct color by which they are identified, and each color corresponds to a particular kind of a wavelength over there. For example, the sodium flame, suppose you have a sodium salt, and then you know that it gives a golden yellow flame over there, and this golden yellow flame, if you pass this light through a prism, you find that you will get, it is get you two lines over there. This is not shown as two, they are very close lines there. They are around 589 nanometers there. So that is the wavelength at which this yellow light comes over there. This is same what you, when you go to airport, you see that a large sodium lamps over there. So they emit this yellow light. Okay. So basically what is there in that lamps over there? The lamps contain sodium vapors, hot sodium vapors, because when you pass electricity to them, they become vaporized, they are hot. And when they radiate, they give out radiation in this particular wavelength over there. That's a discrete line spectrum over there. Okay. So what we observe here is that we just said that we showed the example of a lamp. And then typically what you find is all hot objects give you radiations which is a continuous spectrum. Same thing you remember we had in case of black body radiation also. There was a continuous spread. All kind of radiations are coming when you heat a black body over there. Okay. But what you find is that in case of atomic systems there, the spectra happens to be made up of discrete lines there. And this again could not be explained on the basis of classical mechanics. At that point of time, the only model we had in hand, as we discussed in the previous session, happened to be the Rutherford's model. And we know that the Rutherford model was not good enough because it was not able to explain the stability of hydrogen atom or any atom for that matter. And when you know that according to, as we discussed in the previous session, that the negatively charged electron which is moving around a positively charged nucleus will radiate. It will give you all possible radiations there. That means when it's radiating, it means it's basically losing energy. When it loses energy, it can lose energy in any possible wavelength over there. And what it should give us, we expect that according to the Rutherford model, which was available at that point of time, we find that the spectrum should be a continuous spectrum and not a line spectrum there. And that line spectrum which we experimentally have observed was explained by Bohr's model. That is what we are going to take up in the next session there. And this new model which I just mentioned is called as the Bohr's model, because Bohr's model is again going to use the concept of quantization. That's why we talked about today's session here, because this concept of quantization was used by Bohr to give a model which actually explained atomic line spectrum successfully. Okay, I think with that we'll stop today, and we will continue in the next session. And next session we'll talk about the Bohr's model. We will talk about what is Bohr's model and what is the significance of that, and what are the kind of strengths and weaknesses of that particular model over there. That we shall be taking up in the next session there. Thank you so much.